all have stories. Every single one of us. From the highest of the high to the lowest of the low, we all have stories. Exploring the world for the greatest stories of all time.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Aron O'Dowd Show.
The Aron O'Dowd Show. Our soul is the screen upon which we project our dreams. What's your story?
Hello to all, I say. Welcome. We have an amazing guest, Richard Bontrager. He is the musical producer of the show as well as rock the stage. Hello and welcome to the show, Rich. How are you doing? We have a bit of technical issues here.
There I am.
Hey, he's there. Woohoo. Wow.
I was backstage working for you, and I had to jump over here now.
Many hats, juggling hats. Tell us about how you're able to do that.
I've been a broadcaster all my life, and learning the behind the scenes is just as important as learning the on-camera stuff that I coach and I talk about. But in this day and age, as you know, Aaron, you can do it all now. You can be your own producer, writer, director, host. So I learned that early on in my career, and it's helped me now as we've all transitioned into our own studios and home and stuff.
Did you always want to be part of radio and broadcasting?
Oh, yeah. I absolutely did. When I was a kid, and again, you already know this, but I suffered from a stutter. And I listened to Harry Carey, Cubs baseball here in the United States. He did play-by-play for the Chicago Cubs, and I would listen to him, and he could paint the picture of the smell of the popcorn, the batter digging in, the wind blowing the right direction, how the managers were working with the players. And he painted the picture so vividly. It was a theater of the radio for the mind. And I said, I want to do that. It was so cool that he could take words, paint a picture, and I could see the game. And I thought, that's beautiful. But I stuttered. So I thought, and many people thought I would never be able to do it. And then I actually did.
How does it feel to navigate stuttering?
Man, that's a great question because every year I speak on national stuttering. I do videos and coaching on stuttering. I work with people that stutter. It's a lifelong struggle for many, many people. They don't have the managing skills. They don't know how to manage them. And that's it. We're always looking at how to manage our stutter. How some people, and for me growing up, it literally was every other word when I was very young. It was, and asking a person who stutters their name is the worst thing. So I would try to say Richard Bontrager, and it came up mumble and mumble. And B's are very hard. So even introducing myself to new people, to girls, asking a girlfriend out or asking a girl out, hi, who are you? I'm Rich. I'm Bontrager. And it was horrible. It was painstakingly horrible. So it impacted everything I did with my life. And then I learned how to manage that stutter. And that's what it is. Stuttering, there's no cure, there's no pill, there's no shot you can take for it. It's something that's in us, and there's characteristics and things I think that trigger all that. But then you individually have to figure out how to manage it yourself. And it's hard. It's hard. And it was hard for me up until my mid-20s.
Well, bar speaking, why was it difficult?
Why was it difficult to speak? I know exactly what I want to say. I know how I want to say it. I know exactly how to smile at the girl and ask her out. And I know it all the way through. But then there's something in it. It's like when you're driving down the road, you're in your car, and you get to one of those roundabouts, but you can't get off the roundabout because you can't figure out which exit to get off. That's what a stutter is like. You just keep going around in circles. You're stuck on a K. You're stuck on a B. And then you have to figure out, how can I change the sentence I've already started and not make it sound like it was a train wreck? And then I call it cut and pasting. I'll cut and paste in my head the right words, the right phrase. When I can feel it coming on, I'll actually say, okay, that word's going to trip me up in 3 seconds. I need to change what I was going to say and go to a different word. and then I can get off the roundabout. And that's kind of the process. Everyone that stutters have to figure that own process out for themselves.
Rich, people ask me all the time, what is it like to be visually impaired? And I'm going to ask you the same question. What is it like to be stuttered? Like for me, it's, I can't see this, I can't see that. I know you've overcome it, but growing up and doing what you do, there was probably challenges of,
Oh,
can't do this or can't do that.
so in my early years, they tried to put me in special education as a young kid. That was the first thing. And growing up, the words we used were dummy, and we don't use the words anymore, but that's what they would say. They would treat me, he's slow, he's dumb. So they put a label on me on my early educational years. They said, we're going to put him over here. And they tried to put me in the special needs classes, we call them now, but special education classes back then. But I kept testing out of it. So I was a kid that was troubled with these speaking problems, highly intelligent in my head, but I couldn't answer the questions. I couldn't read the book out loud in school because I would get nervous and the stutter would kick in. So I was trapped in my own body. It was literally, I wanted to say, I could say, but it never came out right. So then it affected everything. The last name Bontrager is something that the kids took full advantage of and called me bomb booger, butt brigger. They came up with horrible nicknames because of the stutter. And that was part of something I had to learn to live with. I had to live with, they're going to do that until my tongue and I get in alignment. And eventually it did. But growing up, it was every bus ride in the school, every bus ride coming home. Every time I tried to ask a girl out, the guys would be snickering in the background. The girls would be snickering in the other corner over there. And it was an endless bad joke. And that's how it felt every night going to bed, every day getting up, is knowing I had this. My mother also stuttered. There's some genetics things that they believe made me connected in this. So I would come home crying, mom, they picked on me again. And she'd go, it's okay, Rich. And that's the comedy routine that we grew up in our own family.
Were you the only person in your family that stuttered?
Me and my mother. No one else. I have two brothers, an older, younger. My father did not stutter. My grandparents did not stutter. And that's part of the mystery of stuttering. They don't know what it is. There is maybe family genetics, they say. There is family dynamics, which affected me. I now look at that going back. Family dynamics really impacted me. There is rate of mental ability and speed of mouth, which I'll talk about in a little bit here, but that was part of it that was there. And then they also say there may be a gene, but they can't prove it. But there might be a gene that is there that is part of all of this. But yeah, there's 4 different categories that they kind of have narrowed it down to. But my mom recently brought something up that was very interesting, very learned. So during the National Stutter Awareness, I did an interview with my own family and friends, other people that stutter, but I actually, for the first time ever, interviewed my own family about their reaction to my stutter. And we had never discussed it at the dinner table. We never talked about our stutters. We just ignored it like every stutterer does. You don't talk about the obvious thing. But my mother said, you know what? I don't remember you stuttering before you had your first epileptic seizure. I was running down the hill, playing with kids outside, and I ran into a fence because I blacked out running down the hill, and I woke up on the ground. And that was the first time epilepsy impacted my life as a young kid. And my mom said, I don't remember you stuttering before that. Did that trigger a traumatic event, which is one of those 4 things?
Wow. And when was the moment where you realized stuttering is part of me and I can conquer it?
That's another great question. Because growing up, I never thought that was going to happen. Again, huge dreamer. I always believed I would be a broadcaster. But that question was the question. When am I going to overcome this? It was beginning to wane in high school a little bit. It really made a quantum leap one summer when I applied to be on a drama team with my church. There was a national church group that had a drama team, and the kid that stuttered applied to be on the team, and they knew I stuttered, and they had me on it. And that summer was a summer that my stutter broke. And it was the first time I could really believe that I really could do this. I really could do it. Up until 19 years old, I never knew how better it could be, how much I would improve in it. It was always going to linger there. But that was the summer it finally broke.
How did it feel?
It was the most liberating, surprising, amazing thing, because we had prepared for this drama, practice and practice and practice. We did a whole week of final preparation for this drama, and I had blown it all week long. I was playing the big bad Roman soldier. I was supposed to be the big heavy, and I can't talk and I can't scare anybody. And it was a horrible week. Everyone was nervous, and the night of the final performance was in front of a group of about 300 people. We did a free demo night to come in and watch the play, and we met backstage with the director, and they said, and I remember so vividly, they said, if Rich could not do his lines tonight, we have to pull the play, and you won't be able to do this. This is a 40-minute play. This is the centerpiece of everything we're going to do. The materials had already been printed. So there's no pressure of Rich if he can't do it. And then they said, but you can do puppets all summer because Rich is really good at doing voices, which I was, because it wasn't Rich talking. It was somebody else talking. And that was part of the secret we learned after a while. I went out. We did the play. The curtain went up. I had every line, every voice inflection, every physical emotion that I do. I did it absolutely perfect, to the point that during the production, my fellow actors are looking at me kind of cockeyed, like, who's this guy on stage? Because it's not Rich. And I could see it. I could see them literally freaking out, like, how bad is this training wreck going to be when he finally begins to stutter? Stepped off stage. The director was there with a tear in her eye and said, you got to go do it. God evidently wants you to go do this. Look what just happened. Pack your bags. You're going to go do it all summer long. And the big transition point was because I then became the spokesman for the team for any radio, any TV interviews. And when we went to different churches, if they wanted a guest speaker, they said, yeah, Rich will preach for you. Kid the Stutter became the mouthpiece for the drama team. And that was because of one event. Completely changed everything.
When you did the voices, what kind of voices? Were the cartoons, animation?
Yeah. Oh, well, growing up at the dinner table, this is another thing we went back through with my family. It was fun to do those interviews. But I used to do Scooby-Doo, Batman, and Robin for all the Saturday morning cartoons. Zoink, Scoob! I want another Scooby snack. And I would do it at dinner. Zoinks, Mom, can you bring me the potato, please? And it would irritate my family as I'm doing these voices. But innately, somehow, with my creativity, I found out I could do this and I could speak. Years later, I found out again, it was like that thing Bruce Willis says. Bruce Willis suffered from a stutter. Bruce Willis, Emily Blunt, many of them have the same thing. When I stepped out of being me and took on a role, I do not stutter. And I never was taught that. I never learned that. I had no therapy. It just was a part of my creative life that was there. Now my family looks back and goes, wow, that's what you were doing. You were actually learning by yourself how to conquer this as a 10-year-old at the dinner table. And no one understood that except for my grandmother.
Grandmas are the special ones. They know everything.
They really do. They really, really do. My grandmother was the one that I'd go over mower lawns on the big riding mower. I thought, oh, so cool. Be a 12-year-old riding the lawnmower and cutting her big lawn. But then I had a love of comics. I still do. And I always had comics with me. And she taught English as a second language traveling the world before. So she sat me down every time I mowed the lawn, had my milk and cookies, had my good stuff. And then she would had me read a comic book out loud. Now, she doesn't care about Batman or Superman or Scooby-Doo. She doesn't. But she said, Rich, I want you to read these in the voices that you think the voices are. And again, I still stuttered, but it wasn't as bad when I began to get in this character mode. And she was the first one that literally said, I see in you a creative that's locked in a body that can't get your creative juices out. I'm going to help you get these creative juices out. Now, she passed away shortly after I was beginning to really come into my own. So she saw a glimpse of the change, but she was really the first one that understood the creative guy has got to be allowed to be creative, because just being a Richard is not going to work.
So at 19, you're realizing I got the stutter capable and it's done and dusted and it's part of me and I'm going to go do broadcasting. What was your journey going through there?
Yeah. And so the journey was going to college. I started off in youth ministry studies, got bit by the radio bug, and I fell in love with radio because I always fell in love with radio. And I started to do it. I had my own campus talk show and music show and spin the records and all that stuff. And my professors, of course, were always recording us, taping us, reviewing everything. And my professor, Richard Long, we're still friends after all these many years, but Richard Long actually told me, he said, Rich, you have a great voice when you don't stutter, but you stutter and nobody's going to hire you to read the news. Now, the saving grace of what Richard did was, and he did not know it at the time either, but we found it out. He gave me a clue into what I need to do. I do get too emotional. If there's a train wreck with 5 bodies dead and cargo burning, I get emotional reading the hard news. I can't tonight, 5 dead, a child on the loose. I can't do those stories. When I got into sports play-by-play, like I always wanted to, I was fluid. I was in the moment. I was just, the excitement of painting the picture of the game was so fun. I forgot about the stutter. It went away. Until I went back to interview the coaches. And then the coaches was a different thing, because now I'm interviewing the coaches, not just rambling about the game. So there's a whole learning process of learning what my skills were, what they could be, how to take the pressure off when I do interviews. But through those years, that's where I got into, I know I have to get into sports work. I have to get into it. I started off at a country western station, first thing out of college, spinning records in the middle of the night, talking to a room by myself. And then I finally got a chance to work with one of the guys that was already doing sports. I became his color commentator doing football. And that was the first step of really professionally getting paid to do football. And again, we played off each other, and the two of us became partners for 7 years in 3 different stations. It worked so well that people liked us and knew us, and I didn't stutter. And that really pushed me even further, that I've now got this. But I'll tell you the one thing that really did it. I learned through all those years, the way we speak is often a pretty fast pace. All of us do it. We get excited. Back when I was in school as a kid, the teacher was asked, Rich, do you know the answer? And I would think, yeah, I do. And I'd get all excited inside of me. And I'd raise my hand, and the excitement overran my words. So what I had to do was I had to figure out the balance between my mind, what I had in my head, and the speed at which I was going to speak and let it come out. It was like the volume knob. How loud, how fast do you go on the speed? And when I figured out that speaking rate of head, brain, mouth, it unlocked everything, because now the flow of information could match my tongue. And that's where a lot of stutters are stuck. I've talked with hundreds of stutters. A lot of them are figuring that out or don't know that secret, because they've just been told you're stupid, you're dumb, you can't do it. But when you start discussing the speed and the flow, many stutters go, I think I got it. And it does change how people speak. Samuel L. Jackson learned this as a young kid. He stutters. And his stutter solution was, I need to do something to reset in the moment. And that's why he swears. And his best swear word is the F-bomb. So when you hear him in a movie, usually do the F-bomb, often on camera, he's resetting himself.
Wow.
And it made the final cut of the movie. That's a lot of what we as stutters have to figure out, what works individually for us. And his is swearing.
Swearing. The F word is the best word. I think it speaks
Yes,
so many
it
words,
does.
you know?
And some of us do have, I mean, you know, when I stub my toe, sometimes shit comes out. It doesn't work. But that's one of the things, you know, doing interviews, you know, this is an interview. What's that unique question you're going to ask? I do know
Mhm.
inside the Actors Guild, used to always ask 5 standard questions. And one of them usually was, what's your favorite swear word? And they always recorded in front of a live audience at the Actors Guild. And the students would love it. They'd love it that somebody, you know, like a really polished British actor would say something that they never expected to come out of their mouth. Like, that's the word. And so, yeah, those things do matter. Learning these little things. Yeah, there's so much with stuttering that, and it's a lonely existence. Many days I read comic books in my room, worked on models in my room, talked to my imaginary friends because they would listen to me without laughing. And that's really how it was. And then I'd go try to play sports, go do things with my friends, and it would come out. So the conflict is you want to be around friends, you want to have a good time, enjoy life, play football in your backyard, but you'd rather be alone because no one's going to laugh at you.
It's kind of sad in some way when you pitch it like that, but yet you've painted it so well at the same time. It is a different ability, but yet it powers you to be the ability at the same time. And I'd love to know sports. What was your favorite?
Oh, in
team?
sports, well, the Green Bay Packers were number 1 football, still are. The Indiana Hoosiers for college basketball. Growing up in Indiana, there was basketball all the time, so you just eat and drink basketball. And the Chicago Cubs for baseball. And when I got into sports broadcasting, I ended up doing all 3 of those sports professionally. And eventually I got to the point where I was doing college football. And it was great because my career was rising and rising, and I'm getting to be known by other broadcasters in the area. And so there's a broadcasting community, a club. And I was beginning to really crack into that club. And that's where Rich Trigger Bontrager was born. Part of it because no one's going to remember the last name Bontrager. And Trigger sounds cool. And no matter what, usually Trigger I can say by myself. So it pops off my tongue. It works better than my real name. So a lot of that marketing branding came in very early on of what's going to be the identity for this very excitable, passion-driven guy that can't speak.
It fits perfect in the sporting world. Hey, Trigger, what do you
And
want?
I was always popping up, being the color guy or play-by-play. When I was doing color, the idea you want to add something to this. So my partner knew this because we did a morning talk show every day. When I first really started to take on the persona of Trigger, we would talk about the Sunday football games or the Tuesday night basketball games and do our little sports analysis. And he was a straight guy. He would give the stats, the scores, the highlights, and I would analyze, critique them. And I found out if I said something truthful, but a little bit off center, and the first couple of times it was like during the commercial break, what are you doing? That's idiotic. What the heck did you just say? Brad, watch the phones. Because we had an interactive phone call and talk show. And the phone was lit up because I said something just a little bit off kilter that somebody had to reply to. And Trigger was born with partly that too, because I was always popping off and people loved that I was doing it.
What is your favorite highlight of broadcasting in sports?
My personal one was a high school game that I did. It was a high school boys state championship game. I did 16 games in 4 days. And I loved every moment. But a certain player by the name of Khalid Al-Amin, who did go pro for a while, the championship game, it was down to the second. It was, I mean, not even a full second on the clock. threw the ball in, took the 3-point shot, buried the 3-point shot at the buzzer, won the game for Minneapolis North, and then he proceeded to run around the inside track of the basketball stadium, ran over toward Media Row where I'm sitting at center court, and leapt over the broadcast table, put his Nike shoe on my head, and pole vaulted into the crowd. That game was on ESPN Live at that day, and friends saw the camera zoom in on the court as he's running around. They saw him jump and hit my head. The back of my head is on the camera, and the people that know me were like, "That's Rich." And they pulled back, and I got blown down to the floor with 3 other broadcasters. And it's so memorable because the excitement, the drama, he hit it. He is the guy that could only hit that shot. And then being added into that moment of him launching off my head is just a priceless moment.
I don't know about you, Rich, but when I watch sports, and it's mainly football or rugby for me, but I get so immersed in it that F-bombs are being thrown and roaring. Are you the same, you know?
On broadcast radio, I could not do that. Now with streaming stuff like this, yeah, we could have done that. Growing up, I did talk and do the games. My parents, again, this is me trying to figure out what to do. But even now, this weekend, I was watching the game with my girlfriend, and Al Michaels is doing the game and talking. I'm like, it's 3rd down and 10, and they need to take a timeout. Hey, we'll be right back for a timeout in just a minute. She's looking at me like, how do you do that? And when it becomes a part of you, you call the game and you're doing it. That preparation as a young child, again, helped me to understand when I got in the booth. I knew how to call a game. I knew the basic premise of good coaching, bad coaching, and it helped me really get into it. I was very fortunate to have that type of sports upbringing. Yes, a speech impediment, but once I figured out that balance we talked about, it was off to the races. I was going.
Wow. It's, it just shows you did it, you achieved it, and people all with you. But yet, when they hear the story, it's like, wow, I didn't know that,
And most people don't know about stuttering and what we all go through. That's why your questions earlier were really great, because there's an awkwardness. And I talk about this during my keynotes and public speaking on stuttering. Part of my message is I want people to know that I'm okay. Because I can see them now. When I trip, when I bumble, they are not okay themselves because they don't know what to do. Most stutters do not want you to answer or fill in the word for you. We want to either say the word or get around the word, but keep speaking. One of the worst things you do is actually jump in and like, oh, I'm stuck on a word, and you know the word I'm going to say, you'll answer bubble, and you'll say bubble for me, and it's like, no, I want to say that, darn it. And it is a frustration thing. So people that encounter us don't know what to do. They get frustrated for us. They get anxious. When I'm in an auditorium now and I'm doing a keynote and I trip over something, I'll go, bleep, 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 bleep. Okay, folks, that's what a stutter's like. That's really it. Take 2. Here it comes. And the people relax and they laugh because they know I'm okay and they're okay. Because my introduction is, welcome, Rich Trigger Bontrager, broadcaster, talk show host, and stuttering for a living. Here he is to help you better rock the stage and communicate. Trigger. And the people hear the word stuttering and they go, is this going to be a train wreck right away? They don't know what to expect. So I take that thought out of their head and I help them understand, just breathe with me and this is all going to be fine. That's one of the secrets that people have got to figure out is, no, we don't like it. We know there's the embarrassment, but you know what? You make it 10 times worse by your reaction of shock and awe and awkwardness. We don't need it. So just relax.
When you did the stars, that's all, folks, from the Looney Tunes. That's what I was thinking in my head,
Well, and so interesting enough that you bring up Porky Pig.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of the media movements right now, people are trying to get rid of stereotypes. They have tried to ask Warner Brothers to have Porky Pig no longer stutter, and they want him to just be a pig. And even people that stutter now are screaming like, "Don't you dare change the character." His stutter made him unique, but he wasn't afraid to stutter, and he was a happy, plump little pig having a good time. And it's amazing that we now want to even sanitize that because we're uncomfortable with it. People are uncomfortable with anything that's not quote unquote normal. So, and I'm sure you get this with your eyes too, Aaron, because I've got bad eyes myself.
Mhm.
People don't know where I'm looking sometimes. So I'm talking to them, stuttering sometimes, and then they're looking around the room trying to figure out who I'm looking at. I'm looking right at them, or so I think. My eyes do funny things, and they're trying to figure out who I'm looking at in the room. You don't need to change us. You just need to live and be in the space with us. And if we're going to do it to a cartoon, you're going to do it to everybody else then too, aren't you?
Yeah, I grew up with Looney Tunes, and I love Looney Tunes. And if someone got rid of it, it would be the death of cartoons, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, that's all part of those cartoons were done for a reason, the way they were done. It wasn't just stupid comedy. There was a life lesson, even Bugs Bunny.
Rich, you do Rock the Stage. Why did you call yourself Rock the Stage?
Because that's what I want to do, and that's what I want other people to do. Whether it's live on a physical stand-up public speaking stage, or now this is a stage, and I coach people heavily on this. But this is no less of a stage, and so you need to learn how to make it come alive. You are the new Johnny Carson. You are the new Jay Leno. You are the new Jimmy Fallon, whoever you want to be. You really can do this now, but you have to feel that you own this and you rock it. And part of it is, this is not a small cube to me. This is a global door that I get to step onto and do interviews with Aron O'Dowd, who's in Ireland. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I want to rock this. I want you to rock this, and I want people to be sucked into the conversations. So you can't just show up and do it like really boring and drab. And thank you, Aaron. It's been a good time being here. You have to look at the camera. You have to be all in this. And that's what Rocking the Stage is all about. And there's techniques, there's tricks. I coach people on how to literally come more alive. There's an executive presence. Many executives don't want to do this, Aaron. They don't want to be on camera. They just want to shout from the rooftops, have a newspaper article come out, or maybe speak on a public stage where there's a big crowd, but they're awkward with the one-on-one, the private, the camera, the intimate. But part of it is, this is just as powerful as the other stuff. And if you learn how to do this, man, there's so much opportunity here for everybody.
Wow. So you spent time in broadcasting, and then did you transition straight from broadcasting to this, or was there a gap?
There was a gap. I actually was a pastor for over 15 years too. Again, a pastor that stutters. But that was all part of, I did broadcasting and planted a church, started church ministry at the same time, very much overlapping. Broadcasting went for a while. Then I got into church ministry. Then I went into full-time church ministry. During that time, the broadcasting was less. Excuse me. But I would be seen Friday night at a football game, calling a game, be seen at Walmart shopping with my family, and be Sunday at church preaching. And after a while, it was Pastor Trigger, Pastor Rich, the broadcast guy Trigger, who happens to preach on Sundays. And in our community, it built a real connection in a doorway. People knew me as a guy that they trusted on the radio for years. They knew me as a pastor who would love their kids, love their people, teach them, serve the community. And the two worlds overlapped so much. There were so many opportunities because of what that allotted me. And then I could speak publicly and do things. Those years of overlap, church ministry and broadcasting really was some of the biggest, brightest times that I've ever had on any stage, locally, internationally. It was amazing what happened by having those two things happen at once.
Wow. What else can you not broadcast?
Well, I've done volleyball once. and I've done wrestling once. And one thing I cannot do, and we actually tried it. my partner that I was with for 7 years, Brad, he was a hockey guy. I did not touch hockey, do not like hockey, have no knowledge of hockey. And so we have, basically I was a 3-sport guy. We would take during football, who was do play-by-play, who was do color analysis, and switch back and forth. It was interchangeable. He got sick and his voice was totally shot. We had already planned to do a hockey game in an adjacent city. The sponsorships were already sold. It was the playoffs. And Brad goes, "You got to do the game. I can't talk." And I'm like, "Brad, I can't do hockey. What are you talking about? You got to do the game. There's no one else to do the game." So what we figured out was, as we're driving over in the car that night, we're going to have my regular headset so I can talk. We're going to add an earpiece. Now, keep in mind, I'm deaf in one ear, so I can only hear out of one ear. So we're going to put an earpiece in my one good ear. We're going to hang the microphone so it's off my other ear. That doesn't matter really, and I have the microphone there. And when there's a penalty, when there's a yellow card, when there's a something, there's a tripping, he will whisper in my ear. Tell me exactly how to say it. Okay, here's this. And I'll say, and there's a little delay, and I'll say it. Now there's people in the audience with the transistors radio listening to us because the fans love Brad, and they know Brad and the Trigger, and that's our talk show, and we're working together. I'll do stats for him during the games. I'm always there. And then you see the fans turning around. "What are you doing?" "Trigger, what's going on?" And I did the whole game. Now in hockey, there's a period, a break, a period, and a break. So he would jump in a little bit. We had another guy come along, who's normally not on a microphone. He dealt with the break a little bit, but I did the game. We drove back, and he's like, "You are never doing another hockey game. Never doing another hockey game." And I learned I cannot do hockey.
Wow, that's incredible. And while you're doing this, so you're a pastor, you're gapping, rock the stage. What was the motivation for you to start the show that you have?
So before pandemic, I was beginning to get into this. I'd done it on and off for years, but I formalized the executive coaching and the idea of rock the stage. Rock has always been one of my words. Again, my favorite keywords, rock. Yeah, we're going to rock it today. And it came out of my mouth all the time. And people are like, "Why do you say that?" I just love it. I think it's cool. Crank your music up to 12. That's rich. And so rock the stage was born out of the idea of you have a stage. Shortly after that, a couple of years after I was really getting into running this and building it out, pandemic hit, and everyone was sent to the Zoom room, and nobody knew how to do it. And here I am, a professional broadcaster, doing it all my life. And I said, I have something that can help people. And that's where Rock the Stage was accidentally born. The show Rock the Stage was accidentally born. I called a couple fellow broadcasters, and I said, "Look, I want to help people who are struggling on Zoom, doing these business things. We know about broadcast techniques. Can I interview?" And we just talk about different things about being a good broadcaster, good host, being centered on camera, body language, eye contact. And I had a couple guys come on. Well, guys kept coming on, and we started the week of shutdown. So the very first week of shutdown, I called a friend and said, "Let's do this." In the middle of July, I had people booked out to September. And I went to myself privately, I'm not running a week-by-week, fly-by-night thing. I'm running a full-fledged show, and I better get my act together. And that's where it took the turn into now what is known as Rock the Stage Show. It's been going for 5 years. It was first How to Rock the Stage. Then it was Rock the Stage Show. And we just have kept the show going. And now it's internationally seen in 17 different countries, plus just whoever grabs it. And it's grown to be a celebrity show, not just broadcasting. It's a celebrity talk show with actors, directors, authors, speakers. You're going to end up being on the show. I'm going to have you on the show because you're an author and a fellow media guy, and you have a unique story. And it's fun to find these people And again, part of as a pastor, you have a calling, right?
Mhm.
My new calling in this media space in the world I find in is I want to help you shine on camera and shine on stage to elevate your brand authority. My job is not to have me shine. My job is to help you shine as good as you can. So I will set you up for success. Backstage, we do things, we prep, and we have fun, but it's all unscripted. My interviews are all unscripted, just like yours are. And we don't know where the conversation is going to go. But in that, I'm helping you relax and have fun. And I've had countless people get done with interviews and say, "You told me we are going to go 45 minutes. It felt like 15." And then they look at their watch and they go, "It's
Oh,
45 minutes." That's the magic. It's helping you shine on camera and shine on stage. You forget this is a box. You forget this is the camera, and you just fall in love with it. And that's the best stuff that I now get to do when I'm doing the show. Besides the coaching that can help you, the show unlocks a whole nother level of presentation.
Rich, when I tell people I'm a podcaster and a broadcaster, they always ask me, so who's your favorite guest? And I'm going to throw the question back at you.
Who has been my favorite guest on the show? Boy, I have been extremely, extremely blessed. I have some great people on. I've had, man, so many different actors, writers. So Diana Wentworth is an author. She did a celebrity cooking show back in the day. Her husband and her stuff did stuff on TV. And she came on the show at a recommendation of someone else who said, "You have got to interview this lady." She is now single, widowed, and she's starting a whole new chapter of life. She's going to move, relocate, and she has this whole sense of wonder and awe of what's around the corner. And she's 70 plus years old and looks like she's 65. And she has this youthfulness. And I said, "Sure, let's do it." This interview was two people laughing, joking, having a love fest. That in the middle of the show, she goes, "Rich, I think I found my new love." It was one of those shows that just oozed out the joy of love and adventure and soaking of life. And she was absolutely fabulous. I also interview National Speaker Hall of Fame award winners. I've done several of those. I had one on early this year that he won what's called the Cavett Award, the #1 speaker award for the National Speakers Association. He had just won the Cavett Award. We're starting the interview. We're getting rolling. I do his introduction, and then he pops on camera, and he's talking for me and say, "Hey, Rich, I got to show you. You know what came in the mail today?" He reaches off camera and brings the Cavett Award on camera. This guy is beaming. This guy is like uncontrollably just in joyland. And he's like, "You're the first person. My wife has not seen this." And I'm thinking, this is going to be a great interview. And that's why I tell people, just be them and go with it. One more for you. I interviewed, he's known as Mr. Sci-Fi. He wrote many of the best episodes of Deep Space Nine from Star Trek. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. He also wrote Saturday morning cartoons from way back in the day. He worked on Land of the Lost and many children. Yeah, I love Land of the Lost. So he had done those shows. And we did a live stream together. We combined, just like you're doing here, we're live. My channels, his channels. We had 500 people live streaming with us, watching as I interviewed him about his amazing career. And it was just like sitting at the feet of one of those people that you've watched all the shows, you've loved all the shows, but now you get to meet the guy behind the curtain. It was so much fun to ask him questions and probe deep into his career. Why he's a writer? What's the story room like? How do you block it off? Again, that was just extra special to have someone like that. But that's part of the joy of what we get to do, Aaron, is we get to meet some of our heroes, some of the people that we'd love to meet, but we also get to go find out people. Like when I do National Stutter Awareness, I'll interview CEOs, executives, the stutter. It's great to have them tell their story so other people can understand what it's like to have a stutter.
What inspires you, Rich?
What's that?
What inspires you?
What inspires me? You know, I've always been about defying the odds. That's part of my brand message. Again, with the stutter, the eyesight, the hearing. I like hearing stories of people that are overcoming, defying the odds. We're not supposed to get emotional during our stuff, but I get choked up. You'll hear my voice squeal. You'll hear me take a drink because the tears rolling down. That's something I like, that I actually do get into the story. I actually love to get into those overcomers. And it's like fueling the fire. I want other people to catch and be contagious with other people defying the odds so they can defy the odds, because we're all going to hit the wall. We're all going to have junk happen to us. And I believe it's how we're mentally prepared to handle that that helps us overcome. No one wants disaster to happen, but I'm always prepared. Crap's going to happen. I'm not going to get up. I'm already prepared for not giving up. So bring it on. And I love sharing those stories.
In rocking the stage, what stage or who would you like to be if you could look back and say, hey, I did everything, and our character, our cartoon, what would you be?
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm Batman. If I could have my life go picture perfect, growing up watching the late Johnny Carson was the thing. I did pretend in my house. My dad had a giant legal desk, just big, huge mahogany desk. When the house was empty, I would grab his office chair and I played Johnny Carson with my dad's desk. In a perfect world, pick any of them, Fallon, whoever you like. I would love to have Rock the Stage become that. I would love to be able to have those top celebrity guests and still do the specialty stuff. I love the specialty stuff. But that would be the new evolution, is where I would want to go. I would want to take Rock the Stage and move it where it's network, it's streaming on Disney Plus, whatever the heck it is, and literally have someone say, we love your show, we're going to pick it up, and we're going to pour promotion and gasoline and finances, and we're going to make this bigger than you could ever imagine. You just keep doing what you do. I would be the happiest guy to sit in a chair every day and talk to amazing people like you.
Where can we find you, Rich, if they want to go hear your fabulous voice?
So Trigger at rockthesagemedia.com. That's one of the easiest ways to do that. Trigger at rockthesagemedia.com. You can go to my YouTube channel, Rock the Stage Show with Rich Trigger Bontrager. Or really the easiest way to do this, Aaron, Google has been good to me. with a career spanning 35 years plus now, and a name like Rich Trigger Bontrager, if you just type in Rich Trigger Bontrager, you will find me. There's over 6 to 8 pages of Google on me. So I'm not hiding. Come connect with me. I would love to meet you. And if you need media training, coaching, executive presence coaching to help you better shine on camera and stage, let me know. I'd love to work with you.
Rich, it's been a pleasure. I deep dive and I still keep hearing the penny in midair, hasn't hit the water yet. So thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a blast.
Aaron, thank you very much for having me. It's always a blast to be with you.
You heard it, the magnificent voice of Rock the Stage. And remember, you can shine and do it. But if you like this, leave a comment, like and subscribe. And remember, rock the stage, because you can rock the world. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Aron O'Dowd Show, where the world's best stories are told. If you like, please post a review or subscribe to the show. To find out more, contact us at aronodowd.com. That's ARONODOWD.com. We're always ready to share another magnificent tale from the world's best storytellers. So stay tuned and rock on.